Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Got Doug back. We're finally back to the Give and Go podcast after taking a few weeks off for basketball. After basketball, Doug, you well rested now?
I'm rested and fat. I'm ready to go.
um, the first guest coming back. Big article that just broke today. Former Homedale coach Darren Ault. Been coaching in the Shore for how many years now, Darren?
22.
St. John Vianney, Mater Dei, right?
Yes.
So, he's been around, and good resume there. So, Dan, let's just when did you start coaching? Where was that?
Started at Mater Dei as a head coach. At the same time, I was coaching 7th and 8th grade boys because my son was in 7th grade. So I was double dipping, if you will, during the same season, which kind of drove my wife crazy. I was at Mater Dei for 12 years as a head coach, St. John Vianney for 6 years, working with Dawn, and then 3 and a quarter or a third at Homedale.
I can say I can attest to the years at Mater Dei. I was on the other end of some butt whippings by Darren's team. But I've known Darren for 20 years. As a opposing coach, as a friend. Coaching against you in high school on the AAU circuit. And, all I could say is you've always conducted yourself with class. And even when you were beating my teams by 40 points, there was never any malicious intent. You played the JV kids. And there was never any animosity or bad words or bad feelings about it. You did your job and you did it well. And you did things the right way. So, when we get into the story, I just want to give that background as my personal, words in support of Darren. So
I appreciate that, Doug. I do. And we did see each other a lot on the hardwood, and it means a lot coming from up here, to have the backing and support. And that was overwhelming throughout this whole thing. The coaching support, the parental support, the family support. So I do. It's humbling. It honestly is.
Yeah. So, I mean, people don't know, Brian broke the article today. Darren was relieved. He was put first on suspension, right? And then it just kept going on and going on. I mean, I'll let you, you could fill in the blanks because, you were directly involved. I'll just say, like, you played RBC that Tuesday. I think the 11th, was it the 11th?
It was, yes.
My phone started blowing up on Thursday, and I reached out to Brian, and he didn't know anything. So then he started doing his inquiries. And all he got was that you were suspended right now, pending. And so what was going on? You got suspended after what? So what was told to you when you first got the phone call that, hey, you're being suspended?
Yeah, sure. I received a phone call the morning of the 12th, the day after the RBC game. And I was told by Matt that I was being suspended for inappropriate touching, which my first response to him was, are you kidding me? And I thought, honestly, that Matt was busting my chops because we did have a relationship on and off the court. And of course, Matt does a good job with his leadership role and had said that it was not something he would joke around about. So immediately my mind starts to go to, okay, the girls first. How are they being taken care of? What do they understand this to be? Then I asked about the rest of my coaching staff. I didn't know what this was about. I didn't know what the accusations were, just under that phrase of inappropriate touching. And I was told that my entire staff was going to be suspended. So I asked, were they implicated in any of this? The answer was no.
Okay.
And then the next answer was that my assistant coach, my JV head coach, who is my son, Nicholas, was being suspended because he had my last name, which I did not know was a suspendable offense. And then on top of that, we had a tremendous volunteer coach in Gigi Caponegro, who, is a short conference standout, was a TOC champion at SJV, went on to play D1 basketball. And to get her to come back and volunteer her time, not for her alma mater, but for her old assistant coach, and help us grow the program. And then, just no regard, no respect for either one of those at all.
So they both. So she couldn't come back either.
No, and I
Oh.
couldn't get an explanation as to why.
Yeah, that doesn't.
After reading the article and stuff, like I said, I have many questions, but one of the questions was, when something like this happens, normally the assistant coach steps into the temporary or however long the suspension is going to be role. The assistant coach, like you said, happened to be your son, and he wasn't afforded that opportunity. So that's where things kind of like, I'm looking at it in a different way, and things started to get a little shady to me. You know, even the accusation was shady because I know you very well, but the fact that your son was passed over or suspended, I didn't know he was suspended, but passed over, there seems more, I don't know, as we get into the thing, I'll ask more questions, but it seems that there was something in the works already, because if I'm not mistaken, the accusation was made weeks before you received the phone call. Am I correct in saying that?
So sort of, I got the call and I was told that it was something in reference to the game the night before. So immediately I start racking my brain, like, hey, what would I have done, period,
Right.
just not knowing who I am as a person and as a coach and as hopefully as a mentor to these girls, what would I have done that would have been construed as such? And Nick actually poured through some video of the night before, and he showed me a couple of things that, you know, as a girl passed by, I give her a high five and I pat her on the back, but you can't really see that because I block most of the camera that I know is directly behind me, you know, and I, even with that, couldn't figure out what the heck they were talking about. Then when I actually got to see the evidence 29 days later, it was from a scrimmage 5 weeks prior to the RBC.
Right. All right. So that's where it got confusing for me, but why would it take so long if it was something from 5 weeks ago to be brought to your attention? Something so like patting a girl on the back or giving her a high five, that to me got me thinking that there was something different going on. That the accusation was made, and apparently the administration knew there was an accusation made at that time. They waited 5 weeks to say something to you. And I kept thinking, like, wow, was there a plan in place? Did they think, okay, well, we know you had a top 10 team going into the season, and your team at that point was playing really well.
Yeah.
Was there a plan? Like, okay, well, maybe the principal can take over and we'll put this all in place, and then we'll let Darren know that there's something going on. And it just seemed kind of wrong to me that, like I said, your assistants were passed over, and thinking about the timing of all this, it just didn't seem right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that question, Doug. I'd like to think, especially for the people in the administration that I know, you know, that isn't the case. I do think there was almost an imperfect storm, if you will, of an athletic director who'd been with us for 2 weeks. You know, imagine coming into your job for 2 weeks and you get this dropped on your lap.
Right.
Matt is a relatively new, untenured principal. We had an acting superintendent on the Board of Education, and it's well known that there's a bit of a revolving door in the leadership at that school and in that school district. So I don't think there's any diabolical plan, you know, that this was going to switch over at a certain date. I just think that somebody, and it wasn't, the person who made the accusation wasn't the person who got, you know, touched inappropriately. Number one, it was a third party who both those players and their parents said this is absolutely ridiculous.
Just to cut you real quick, I heard the player who was very upset when she found out that she was being dragged into this, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about your phone blowing up. My phone was blowing up the next day. The next day, which I couldn't understand, from coaches, from athletic directors. Then parents started to reach out to me just to make sure that, you know, the coaching staff was okay, and they were talking about their daughters crying in the training room and just disheveled. And, you know, I was doing my best to just tell them to hang in there, stay connected, keep working, keep pushing. We'll figure it out.
And that says a lot about your character right there. You know, you get this accusation and all you care about is the kids and, you know, how they're going to come out of this. And that just tells, you know, a lot about your character right there.
Well, listen, they are always the primary purpose. I mean, anybody who's worth their grain of salt in coaching, it's always about the kids. And for me, building the program and at Homedale, the only reason I left SJV, which I loved what I did with Dawn, I loved being a part of those teams. And The only reason I left because I had the hunger to build another program like I did at Mater Dei, and Homedale just seemed to be the right spot and the right time. And we were on our 4th year. This was the year. You know, when I think of people like Abby Ferguson and Catherine Martini and Mia Giamanco that were freshmen, little tiny freshmen, you know, dull-eyed freshmen, didn't have any idea how they could play and what they could do on the shore, to graduate to this year. This is what we were focused on.
And I watched that Derby C game. You know, rightfully so. You're playing. They were number 2 in the shore. Top 5 in the state. Your team, first half, your team was you were taking it to them. Abby was getting to the hoop. At will. Like she couldn't be stopping into the hoop. And Martini was on fire. And you were. If I was still coaching, I would. You play a top team. That's ranked higher, and you're fired up when your team's taking it to them like that. So. And then, ironically, when I got the phone call, all the games prior were off. Homedale Athletics YouTube leaves everything up there, and all the girls' basketball games were wiped after that. And to me, that was a little bit of a shady thing going on. That every single game was wiped off the YouTube page.
Yeah, I mean, going to the first part of your comment there, Nick, I mean, the RBC game, I remember talking to somebody that night. It might have been David Brown. I forget who, but I said from a basketball purist standpoint, this was a great game to watch.
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, there were 45 free throws shot in the game between the two teams. And between the two teams, we only missed 3.
Wow.
And our team didn't miss any. And to your point, early on in the game in particular, the girls were playing to the scout like nothing, like they've ever done before. I mean, Catherine Martini, and I told her, I said, Allie Carmen's not coming out to guard you beyond the 3-point arc. You come off a screen, you're open, shoot the ball. And it was a bang, 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 3-point. She had 11 points in the first quarter. I mean, incredible. They played awesome as a team. And even at the end, when we had to start fouling on purpose and trying to slow the clock and trying to gain possessions, to RBC's credit, they were sticking every free throw. I think they were, whatever it was, 25 of 28, I think it was, from the free throw line.
Yeah, which is funny because the year prior to COVID, to me, I said it a few times, foul shooting was their Achilles heel late in games for RBC, and they were just icing they were like that all season this year, very good from the free throw line. But it was, as a neutral fan like me and Doug, it was a fun game for me to watch. I was watching it on the YouTube channel. It was a fun game to watch.
But to that point too, I mean, that's a part of the season where we got hit by COVID during the Christmas break. So we had, my son actually took over during the Christmas tournament because I was a COVID victim, I guess, during Christmas break. We'd won a couple games against bigger schools in that tournament, West Orange and I forget the other one. And then we ended up losing to New Providence. And we didn't. A very good team, but we did not play well. And there was, I mean, even in my senior captains, there was panic. There was distress. The wheels were falling off the cart. And I just didn't have enough bubble gum and popsicle sticks to hold it together for that game. But I told them afterwards that, hey, if you want to compete, this is the kind of team, the kind of game we have to play, and we have to play through the adversity together, And so we started to. We played Trinity Hall that Monday coming out of the break, beat them. We played Toms River North down in their gym.
Yeah, you were at that game, right, Doug?
I was.
Doug was
there.
Yeah. He was in his foot gas, and I was in
same
my
time. Yeah. You had just gotten out of yours. I was in mine.
Yeah. So we beat them. Then we go to Shore, which Shore had a phenomenal season, and Will's a great coach, and Riley Drehos is no joke. You got to figure out how to defend against her, and we beat them. And we come in, so we're on a roll, and we play well against RBC, and I could feel it starting to click. I could feel what we were working on all through the summer and all through the fall starting to come together through, because of the senior leadership and because the bench and the role players were starting to buy in.
Yeah. Hey, Brian just texted me. I don't know if I could say somebody's pissed off at him.
Yeah. What else is new?
Yeah.
So after reading the article, which I didn't want to before our interview, but I couldn't really wait to read it. It's the one thing that stuck out to me among others was that the administration said that you were not terminated from your job, and you're more than able to reapply if you so choose to do. And to me, that's a joke, because there's no way they'd approve you after all this stuff going on. At least I don't think they would.
And
But
second
the
of all, I think
second
2 months ago they already like decided who was taking that team over.
right, exactly. And the fact that they'd ask you to reapply is a joke. But
Yeah.
would you consider reapplying if that was the case?
It's a great question, Doug. Throughout the entire process, there was a lot of internal debate in my family going on. Like, well, okay, so if you get reinstated, would you reapply, or would you continue on with Homedale? And we went back and forth a lot. And had this gone what I considered to be the proper way, and honestly, it could have been done in about 45 minutes in a conference room with me, the superintendent, the principal, the athletic director, and whoever the accusers were, and just hammer this thing out, because it was not what they portrayed it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And had that happen, and I got reinstated at some point there shortly thereafter and cleared. Yeah, listen, I love the girls at Homedale, and again, building the program is looking year over year, and I think like any coach does, almost as soon as you start one year, you're starting to think about what the next year is going to look like. You know that from your experience. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And there was a great hamster wheel, if you will, of young talent coming up. It's just a matter of forming them and molding them and getting them to buy into our system. And I was very excited about that prospect. I had no thought of leaving Homedale at any given time until this came up.
Yeah, and developing it from like the ground up, you're doing a good job. You got St. John Vianney right around the corner, so getting kids to stay home instead of going to the private school, that's a tough thing too. And with the talent that you have there, you got some talent that could, definitely play at St. John Vianney. So it's a good job there too, building your name, building the program, getting the talent, which the public school, all the public schools fight to do is to keep the best talent, home.
Yeah. I jokingly offered Julia Carpel a full ride to Homedale. She stayed. But to your point, Nick, I mean, getting Alexander Lakopoulos to come back from the squad was huge for our program.
Yeah. And she had a great junior great season this year.
Flourishing, just gaining confidence and playing wonderful basketball. And actually, just prior to this whole thing unfolding, I'd added her to our captaincy. Like we had Abby and Catherine were senior captains, but because of the way Alexander was playing and because of her mentality and her coachability and just what she brings to basketball in terms of maturity, I asked her to join the captains.
Yeah, the game, what was the coach's choice game against Morris Catholic, a few of the players looked a little timid, and, Alexandra was the one in the first half that, she was the one attacking the hoop, aggressively, for the first half. She had a phenomenal, breakout season for her this season. Me and Doug talk, we want to get her on the podcast, hopefully during the summer. One thing, Homedale, your situation, Doug Shaw was removed as coach. Boys soccer coach was removed two seasons ago, I think, the year after John DiCarlo stepped down. So the guy who took over after him, I think he only lasted a month.
That was Ron Pohl, I think.
Yeah, and and I think a couple football coaches in the past, and it all seems to stem from parental complaints, and not even your situation, but these parents, they're just getting, if their kid isn't, put into their star roles or given their roles, it just seems the complaints and stupid allegations come out, and you got kids that jump from AAU to AAU team in the season. Kids that are enrolled or planning on going to one school at the beginning of the summer and then end up at a public school right before. So
you just described the situation to a T.
I kind of did that on purpose there.
Yeah, good job.
And that was to follow up. Nick said that was one of my questions. You have an impeccable reputation. I mean, nobody ever says bad word about Darren Ault ever. In my 20 years of knowing you, I've never heard a bad word. Why do you think the administration would take the word of a parent, a one-off parent, because this has never happened before, over hundreds of letters and that kids and students and players and parents wrote, and your reputation. Why do you think
Yeah.
that one off parent got so much capability over all of that other stuff?
That's not the thing that haunts me still today, Doug. I ended up writing like a 7-page letter to the Board of Ed just a week ago, summarizing all this thing. And what I told them was just that, if anything else, if there was a question about anything at the board meeting on January 26th, 2 different parents stood up on their own accord and read 2 different letters to the board. One was on behalf of 16 parents who stood up behind them in a show of solidarity. Some of those were alumni parents. They weren't even in the program anymore, and read a letter speaking on behalf of me and my coaching staff and saying that we should be restored immediately to the program, that their girls have never been in any kind of danger or harm.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second letter was read by the mother of one of the alleged victims of this, this inappropriate touching, and was read on behalf of 18 out of 19 players in the program, all talking about how we as a coaching staff treated them with respect and taught them the meaning of family, and so on and so forth. And both of those were read to the Board of Ed. They're on their minutes, online.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, thank you for your input. And you've got multiple families and 18 out of 19 players saying coach should be back, and nothing happens. Like, what else do you need? So what my summary was to the board was, at the end of the day, it felt like you didn't really care about the child, who, if they made an accusation, should be heard. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's legitimacy to that accusation, it should be heard. It should be investigated the right way. And then there should be some kind of, come together meeting on what's the right move forward. Right? And they certainly didn't have any concern about my well-being or my rights or those of my coaching staff, because those were blown out from day one. Right?
Yeah.
Right? And then I summarized, and all he really cared about was, how do you stay out of litigious problems? How do you protect your own butts? And that's what it came down to.
So
in my opinion, the board was worried about the board.
After all that, there was no reconsideration. I mean, just based on what you just said, okay, thank you for your letter. We appreciate your time. And that's it. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of problems are now, is people just trying to stay out of, lawyers' crosshairs and trying to protect themselves without care for the students or the coaches. And it's just not right. And it's a shame that the Board of Ed didn't take those words more seriously.
And even worse is that I didn't even get to talk. Nobody sat in a room and talked with me personally
At any point during this whole thing?
Until 29 days after the accusation. So this is after the board, where those 2 letters are read. This is after the police department. I had to go to the police department. I haven't been to the police department since I was 5 and walked away from my mother, and she lost me. And luckily I got picked up by a good police officer who took me to the station, chocolate and toys until they got
Right,
home.
yeah.
Right? I had to go to the police station, talk to them for 45 minutes. They apologized to my attorney that I was even brought in. And that's another thing. I had to go get an attorney. I had to rack up a couple grand fees just to make sure basic rights were protected. So no, nothing until 29 days later. So how do you have a real in-depth investigation if you don't even talk to the person who's accused? I didn't even get to see what the evidence was, the so-called evidence, until 29 days later.
Wow.
And that's when I discovered that it was from a scrimmage 5 weeks prior to the accusation being levied, which, by the way, coincided with a decision by the coaching staff, not just me, by the coaching staff, for 2 players who we moved or brought up to swing to varsity during the COVID-laden Christmas tournament, to move them back to JV so that they could get more playing time and continue to mature the right way. And then the accusation.
Doesn't that happen at every program? You bring kids up, you let them either sit. If the game's a blowout one way or another, you give them some playing time, and they go back to JV and keep developing. That happens all the time. So what was different about this one?
When you get people who feel like they should be at a certain spot and they're not, or they see peers who are at that spot and they're not, but as you know, as being a former basketball coach, there's different types of players, different roles on a bench. Right. So you may have a peer who's swinging up to varsity because they fill a certain role.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to get them to mature a little quicker, or they're not injured during the summer and fall like this one person was, which slowed them down a little bit. And that's not to
Right.
say that they didn't have talent. They did. I was one of the biggest advocates. I'm the one who talked about bringing them back to Homedale when they decided to leave, last summer, and actually wrote a personal letter to the young lady saying, yeah, as an eighth grader, saying, hey, listen, I understand you chose to go to this school. I respect your decision, but understand that you have a home at Homedale, if things don't work out. And it was the middle of summer when that changed, for very similar reasons.
Yeah, that's you know, not just you see it. It's these parents. First of all, I sent Gary Litton, the trainer, a text a couple months ago. I was looking at the Brookdale roster for sports recently, and nobody from the Shore area is basically playing for any of these teams. Now, when I was at Brookdale, granted this was a long time ago, their sports were always top. They were winning national titles and everything. Over there competing, and they were always getting some top talent from that. And I said to Gary, I was like, do you think the pressures put on by trainers, parents, are causing these kids, D1 or bust, and it's causing all these transfers. And now we're starting to see in the high school level, you're not playing you're not playing in a summer league. You're switching schools.
Yeah.
You just you've been coaching that long. Have you seen like the change over the years? Where more pressure. You think more pressure from the parents?
Um, yes, I do think there's a little bit of that. I do think there's a social and cultural change too, where kids and parents even there's more of a sense of entitlement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was raised in a house of meritocracy. I was raised. I went to a college that if you didn't put in the effort, you didn't get the reward.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably both of those things, Nick. Definitely there's pressure from the sense of, hey, my kid could go to D1, but there should also be a reality check. Not everybody's a D1 player. That's not to say that your girl can't go on, or your son or daughter can't go on to play college if they want to. There's plenty of opportunity in college. It may not all be at the D1, but listen, my daughter went and played D3 at Drew University and had a great career in a great conference. The Landmark Conference was no joke, and there was fun, competitive games, and she had a great time. But so I think there's both things going on there, and you can definitely see it in the media. There's a lot of reports. I was reading a couple articles during this experience where football coaches were being suspended because they made a kid run from missing practice, so it became a corporal punishment, which is ridiculous. I just don't know where it ends, where anybody can say anything, levy any accusation, and be given the merit and the validity that this was.
There was after this happened, an article came out for basketball. I forget, and I retweeted the article and I said, "Oh, it sounds like a similar situation in the Shore," because it was, right after this was starting to go down, and it was basically the coach disciplined one kid. It wasn't a bad discipline either. It was just I think he didn't start or something like that, and the coach got removed from the position. And it was just because the parents raised a big stink.
Yeah, and it's not always a case where the player's not getting or is not at the position or the level or the time that they want. I mean, one of my last years at Modern Day, I had a parent. This is probably my biggest detractor, if I had one, whose daughter started for me on varsity all 4 years at Modern Day, and he still wasn't happy. I'm like, what else do you want me to do? She's 1,000-point scorer. She started all 4 years. I mean, so there are just some people you're not going to please, especially, and that's part of it. When you put yourself in a leadership role, no matter what it is, no matter what venue, sports or otherwise, there's always going to be people who think they can do it better.
Hey, we're roughly the same age. If that was the case back when we were growing up, we wouldn't have had a coach. If they made us run extra push-ups there for messing up, being 5', we'd never have a coach. I think like most kids today, it's just a soft environment, soft culture, and it's just easier for people to complain than work hard.
Doug, my freshman team in high school, we were 0-11. and my coach took us out on the football field to run suicides, and it was snowing. I'm not lying. This was in Northern California, and by the time we got to the 40-yard line, everybody was throwing up. And then we went back in and had practice. Now we showed him. We went 0-18. But
well, good. Yeah. But did you ever complain? Did your parents ever call him to complain? It just didn't happen.
Nope. Just come on. Obviously, we weren't doing things. And I'm not advocating for his approach, but you know, we needed to buck up and get better as a team, and we didn't. But that's what the kids need to understand is that, in my opinion, there's a role for everybody on our team. But where that is and how much time that is, and you earn that along the way.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think, and this is not, I know not every parent is like this. It is one-offs. But and it just, it's just, to me, it was just the rest of the kids on the team, and it was just, to me, it was more how the board handled it. Not really get in touch with you until 29 days later, and not looking at the whole situation of the history of the person lodging the complaint. Did they speak to the player that it alleged happened to?
From what I understand, and so let me back up a second, Nick. I'll answer that. But yeah, it's not every parent. It is the one-off because
I know you had a lot in, like, I think I told you when we ran into each other at one of the events during the playoffs that I told you the parental support that I've been hearing, they all had your back. So
no, it was overwhelming and humbling, and it was text after text and call after call, and they worried about me, worried about my coaching staff, how are they, and of course we reciprocate with how the girls, that's our main focus, but we're adults at the end of the day, we'll be okay. But I didn't want them to lose grip on what they were doing. So it's not every parent by any stretch, but unfortunately it's the one bad apple, that seems to get all the attention there. So no, we never got any explanation along the way other than that one phrase, inappropriate touching. And so I started to do my homework. So how is this possible? How's it possible that I'm not getting any opportunity to talk about this? And there are very clear policies in the board about, any kind of situation like this, the person's supposed to be notified about the exact statute and what they were offended by, and will be given a timeline and see the evidence. And so there was nothing like that to me from the board, no formal notification whatsoever. And beyond that, not only did where'd Doug go?
His dog.
Sorry, my wife and daughter just got home. The dogs are about to explode, so I tried to get them outside.
Yeah, I got my two upstairs. I understand that. But no, one of the fathers of the alleged victim actually wrote an scathing email to the rest of the parents on the team, like, how number one, do you use my daughter's name and image without my permission in a situation that we don't condone or endorse, to take down the reputation of a good and honorable person? And I mean, you couldn't be any more clear than that. Yeah,
that's the head scratcher about all this is the player that it allegedly happened to is the whole family's basically didn't happen, and the board just went on with the suspension and removal anyway. But you can reapply.
Yeah, well, even at day 29, when I finally got to talk to them and saw what the evidence was, it wasn't what I was told it was, and it involved actually a second player, and both of them I was like, this is ridiculous. And I knew from both of them, both players, that the complaint didn't come from them. The parents certainly wouldn't complain. Even if there was any indication of what looked like an improper thing, the first person they would have come to talk to was me.
Yeah.
To say, hey, just so you know, and we would have talked to each other, because that's the kind of program we create, that engagement with the parents, the engagement with players. So after that, there was just, I'm thinking to myself, again, trying to be optimistic. Okay, now that they've seen it, now that we've had this conversation, maybe when the regular season ends and JV's no longer playing, they're going to reinstate me so I can go through the short conference and states with the girls. No. 4 days after that meeting, it became, well, we're going to do this We're going to hang on to this suspension. There was going to be some requirement of undescribed sensitivity training that, and then, oh yeah, you have the opportunity to reapply if you want. and so what Doug was saying earlier, so I've been suspended for a year. I'm supposed to go to some kind of undescribed sensitivity training, and I can reapply to the people who basically just lynched me.
Right.
They hold all the cards.
Sounds like a golden opportunity.
Yeah. And to be, that's a de facto firing is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I find a lot of what I read and what I heard unfair about this whole thing. But the most unfair thing is that once something like this comes out about a person, their reputation is sullied, not to the people that know them, but to the people that don't know them. And most times that person finds it very hard to find another coaching job because of allegations that are unfair and untrue. Did you ever consider that before doing these interviews, that might be a possibility when all this comes out, that, hey, this might be the end of my coaching career?
Yeah, I'm not going to run from the truth, Doug.
I know you well enough that you won't. Yeah. But that's, it's a reality. It's so
it is. And I've had some conversations with some coaches who are interested in, me joining their staff or other opportunities out there. And I knew in my heart of heart that this wouldn't be a problem, especially in the short conference, but even throughout the state of New Jersey, but especially in the short conference. Just again, by the amount of support thrown at me from these coaches, from athletic directors. One athletic director, very prominent, said, if they're going to do this to a guy like you, who do they expect to hire at Homedale? So I wasn't so much worried about that. I was more worried and concerned about the way that my coaching staff was treated, especially, Nick, who is an aspiring coach and does want to eventually be a head coach, and to not even be accused of anything just because he has my last name. It's just disgusting. And then for a young Division I player she's got talent as a coach, she's quieter, and we were trying to get out of her a little bit, but the girls loved her. And to be able to bring that kind of understanding of the competitive level required to take Homedale to the next level and have her there, giving that to the girls and that experience of girls, and to just be totally dismissed. I can't fathom that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard from the outside to think about that, but you being the leader of the team, I can't imagine the frustration, the what the heck just happened going on in all of this.
Well, especially when there's no definition offered. There's no, this is what you did, this is what we're doing, this is the timeline. It was all left to happenstance. And I was the one who started asking questions like, what is the next step? Who owns this process? That was a question I asked early. Who owns it? And I would get different answers that didn't hold merit. I was given some suggestion to go talk to somebody at the school about, potential representation. And when I talked to that person, well, you're a Schedule B employee, you don't get representation. That seems like a discriminatory practice in its own right,
Sounds like it.
Because I'm not unionized.
Wow.
Switch a little bit off this basketball. I'm assuming you followed the rest of the season for Homedale. They played those two really close games with Manasquan.
Yeah.
Did you get this? Did you see any of those? Did you get to see those games?
So
the Manasquan ones.
I went to the short conference semifinals.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry,
quarters.
Quarterfinals. But yeah,
okay.
So I was there all day. That was the day after I found out that I was not going to be asked to come back. Prior to that, I even though nothing was formalized or told me I couldn't go to games, I just thought it might be a little uncomfortable for the girls. I didn't want to be a distraction to them. But with the time passing and their parents, encouraging and Homedale basically making this decision, I said, all right, I'm going to go to short conference quarterfinals like I would any other year.
Yeah.
Because there's some good basketball to watch. And certainly I want to cheer the girls on, because the one thing, and I mentioned it in the article with Brian, that I am super proud of the way the girls, the resilience, the resolve they had with this major distraction and adversity to just plow through it. And, during the summer, one of my friends who was kind of a consultant to the program had given me a book by Jay Wright on attitude. And he had talked in there about staying connected to the vine and, how a unit, a individuals that work as a unit are much stronger than working individually. And that was our mantra, was just staying connected to the vine. And our leadership, Abby, Catherine, and Alexander, did a great job of keeping that mantra going forward. And then to see them blossom, and Erica Stolker and Allison Cannon and, you know, Mia Giamacco coming off the bench, just to watch them blossom and really stick through it I was very proud of that. I know I wasn't there, but they're my girls. And I was very proud of that.
Because my question would be, you know, that was the 4-point game in the short conference. Anything different you would have been doing if you were on the bench that game?
Well, listen, I mean, one of the things that comes
And I don't
out
know
of
Matt's coaching background. I don't know if Matt had prior coaching.
well,
I mean,
he
everybody
coach
knows
boys,
Lisa
he
does.
coach boys like I used to, and they have
Okay.
to make a transition.
Okay.
From that. No, listen, Matt's a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that you miss out on in games like Manasquan and that rivalry is the nuances that come with it. And, you know, I'd certainly, if I were there and my coaching staff was there, we have the benefit of the last 3.5 years in the multiple games against Manasquan where we might recognize a weakness. We might realize where somebody's losing a little bit and we need to get a sub in.
Mm-hmm.
The bench that we were trying to develop kind of fell by the wayside. So maybe we have that more developed and ready to go.
I noticed that late in the season, there really wasn't much of a bench use.
No, and we had some really good young players there that were developing enough to give us some, you know, a couple key minutes. Give Catherine a break. You know, I had Mackenzie Teven, who's 6'1". I think she might be 6'2" now, and she's kind of like Catherine, but she could have spelled her a little bit. Michelle Steele was coming on like gangbusters as a freshman, and I was just about ready to pull her up full time when all this happened. So, you know, maybe those things make a difference. You know, Lisa always does a great job with her team, and they were certainly peaking at the right time. But I'd like to think we could have pulled one of those out.
Yeah. I still go back to, what was it, 2 years ago when you had to play them 4 times?
Yeah, and you know, the thing that I drew on personally was the fact when I was with SJV, we had to play them 4 times the year we won the TOC. So, you know, I was happy personally to have gone through that so that I could kind of convey that to the girls that, you know, and actually going back even further, when Abby and Catherine were freshmen, we went into Manasquan, and they were just phenomenal team. They always are. They're a phenomenal program. And like I said, Lisa does a great job with them. But we go into their gym, and I'll never forget 2 minutes prior to us going out to the gym, I pulled the girls in the locker room. I said, okay, we've never practiced this, but we're doing the triangle and 2 defense tonight. Here's what you got to do. Blah, 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 blah. And we were not even expected to be in that game. And Jenna Stolker comes out and hits 6 3-pointers, and our triangle and 2 defense throws them for a little bit of a loop. And we ended up losing that game by 9 or 10 points. But little freshman Abby Ferguson came up to me and she says, Coach, that felt like a win. You know, and I was like, yeah, all right.
That's it. That's it. That's it. So, Doug, you got any other?
I just have one more question. Just, you know, to round this whole thing out and get your perspective, leaving the kids out of it. Okay. I know it's hard to do, but leaving the kids out of it, knowing what's going on with your situation and a bunch of other high school coaches, watching reports of shootings and, you know, referees being attacked at AAU games and kids being punched in the face at AAU games and nothing being done about it.
Another gun was pulled out this weekend.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just it. Why would anybody want to get into coaching anymore?
That's a fair question, Doug. I mean, for me personally, it's a passion. It's something, you know, I started doing back in 1989 when I went to the Naval Academy Prep School as a young ensign, and I was looking for something to do to pass the time, and got in with them as an assistant coach. And that's where the bug kind of hit me. You know, we would play like Navy's JV team and Army's JV team and Harvard's JV team. And it was cool to see the development of young men at the time who came from all kinds of walks of life and all kinds of different personalities, and to be able to get them to be cohesive as one unit. And that was a 1-year program. So we had to do that every year over and over again. That's really where the bug started. And then eventually when I switched over to girls, I mean, it's a different world. And I told my son when he wanted to come coach, I said, well, listen, once you start coaching girls, you'll never go back to boys, because
100%.
The girls are just sponges still, in spite of all the crap that's going on out there and all these entitled parents and rosy colored glasses. The girls are sponges. They want to learn the game. They want to understand the game. And a lot of times they just don't have the confidence in themselves that they can. So that's where, that passion comes from. It's getting them to believe in themselves and to understand what their potential is, not only as an individual, but as part of the bigger unit, as part of the team. So at the end of the day, to have something that selfish and that diabolical, get me suspended for a whole year is frustrating. It's a gut punch. It's a horrible feeling. But even with all that, I would still, in my mind, I'm like, that passion's still there. I still want to do it. I just don't know if it will come about. But anybody coming into it new, I think there would be a lot of brakes being pumped.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, why would anybody new? Listen, I know you. We have a great passion for the game. I stopped coaching. My daughter stopped playing AAU her junior year, so that was it for me. And I was okay with the decision because soccer was a sport and we had a lot of traveling to do. But if I was a new coach, I'm not sure I'd be so gung ho about getting into all this crap that goes on. It's just not. It's not something you want to pour your time in and donate a lot of time to just get, basically peed on. I mean, I don't know how else to say it.
Listen, I could say, I've been asked, to either go back to coaching club soccer or, getting back and coaching soccer. And with all the stuff going on, there's just, it's deterrent from being not wanting to, get back involved. And, one plus is I enjoy doing, what me and Doug started doing, and one plus of me not, one reason.
No, what you guys do is fun, and it's definitely you do a great job throughout the last couple of years of just pulling these things together. And what's nice is it's very evident to see your passion and how much you care about the sport, and you tell it plainly and simply, and it's great for the girls for sure.
Yeah, me and Doug, definitely no agenda. We just what our eyes see and what we think we see. That's what we put out there.
Yeah. Well, you do it with integrity, and that's important in all of this. And
thank you.
Unfortunately, there's always going to be somebody out there who's taking pot shots at you, and it's easy. I mean, there's a great quote from Teddy Roosevelt. I won't bother you with it because it's kind of long, but it's basically easy to be the person outside the arena taking shots at the person in the arena.
Absolutely.
When we talked Friday, I told you, upset parent about all short teams that we put out. It's people take it a little too personally, and it's all a matter of like Doug keeps posting. It's just a matter of our opinions.
Yeah. I mean, it's unlike the school I went, or it's like the school I went. I went to the Naval Academy, right? And I was top I think I was second or third in my high school class, right? But when you pull 1,000 people throughout the country that are all top, 1, 2, 5, 10% of their class, somebody's going to be at the bottom of that new freshman class.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you stop trying and stop hoofing it and try to reach that top. But I think some of that mentality is lost in our youth.
It also doesn't mean you're not smart because but someone's going to feel that way because they went from number 1 to number, I don't know, 180, but that's still 180 and you would be top anywhere else you went. So I think there's, like Nick said before, it's just a lot of pressure on kids these days. And some of them have the tools to handle it and the parental support to handle it. And some don't. And it's a shame that some kids, of course you're going to listen to your parents, but when your parents are negative toward everything, that's the way you end up.
Yeah. And I do want to just stress 2 things. I mean, again, the amount of pride I have in the girls that and how they handled this season. It's unfortunate. There were times I saw 1 or 2 of them and they almost felt like they couldn't come talk to me. Mm-hmm. And that's a shame. I've really not been able to talk to any of them since this, which is just killing me. And then the other thing is, to what we've talked about, this is not parents in general. This is one set of parents who have misguided their child.
Right.
Where the other, and it comes from home. It comes from home, and then it has long-lasting effects. But all the other parents, overwhelming support, just great, great people. And it's a shame that this happened to them and their daughters as well.
Yeah, it took a lot for me to come back to do this for basketball season with, it's just so different soccer with the parents. Like, you don't see so much involved, there's bad apples, but basketball is just so much more. Parents seem to have so much more of a vocal presence in basketball. One reason, but one reason, was Doug for me coming back to basketball, and the really good parents I've met over the last 4 years of me getting them back involved with the high school sports.
Yeah.
Seeing them at the game, saying hello. They are very good parents. I got one question back to the situation now. What kind of the player, the parent who complained, the daughter of the parent, you're putting her in a difficult situation, I think, too, right? Not giving specifics, but, probably, now teammates might hate her. I'm not saying this is the situation. I'm just saying, that could develop, I think.
Yeah, sure. I mean, kids will be kids, right? But
Yeah.
The way I explained it to Matt early on, and then I reiterated to the board, was that this, to me, were parents in a very bad way using their daughter as a shield to protect them so that they can say whatever they want to about me. And then using two other kids, innocent kids, as the weapon to get at me. And that's just, as I said in the article, that's pure evil. It is.
Yeah.
It is. And unfortunately, as I told the board, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. And good people did nothing in this case. And getting back to what Doug had said before, consideration of coming back. I mean, I don't do this for the money. I don't work in a school. I have a profession outside of the school. And I actually got an email from a customer 3 days after this broke out about, hey, what is this I'm hearing, kind of thing. Now, luckily, it was a customer who's friendly and understands short conference but that could have easily been something
affected
negative.
Your business. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are things I need to consider as well. Because again, if you're going to give everybody license to say and do whatever they want without recourse, and the coaches are in a tough spot.
Yeah.
And you know full well, once it's said, it can't be taken back. Yeah. So if somebody's going to lie about something or tell a falsehood about something, it's going to get out there and people are going to think, wow, did this really happen? Is this really true? Your reputation, is in some way going to take a hit. And it's just, that's the shame of it, is that people can say whatever they want, but it's very hard for the person being accused to defend themselves when lies get out like that.
Yeah, but I was truly bolstered by the parents, by the coaches, by the ADs, by the refs. You guys. The night I saw you guys at the quarterfinals, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a father from an opposing team who came over to me, and he's a rather formidable human being. And I didn't really know who he was at first. Then I saw him walking around the gym, and the next thing I know, he's walking towards me, and he's coming up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what is this? And he basically came up and said, everybody in the shore knows that this is BS. And he thanked me for talking to his daughter a couple of weeks before, who was an opposing player, after the game, just talking to her about the college choice she made and offering her support and help along the way.
When you say formidable, the name came right to my head, so I'm pretty sure I know who it was.
Yeah,
I'm sure you probably do.
Yeah, and I could attest, talking to parents from other teams too. They same thing, that father, said to you, I've been hearing too. And, parents that don't even, you probably very little association with their kids, just know, and that just goes to the reputation. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see him back on the sidelines.
Better.
Well, we will see what unfolds. There's a lot to consider. Probably the most important thing is my wife.
She probably does not want to go through this again.
33 years, and I've been coaching basketball 33 years, so I'm not sure how the two coincided. But
how about your son? Your son still want to be involved, Coach?
He's having some conversations with folks.
He's been very vocal on Twitter today.
Yeah, listen, he's a great guy, and I could not imagine being in his shoes, where your father's being accused of something so atrocious. And take me out of it. Take me being his father. The head coach that you're working for is being accused of something so atrocious, and then you're bumped off of that just because.
Is it? I heard. I don't know if this was true. I don't know who told me this. Did he show up to a game, and that's when they told him he couldn't coach? Did that happen?
We showed
Madawan, I
up
think
to a
was.
game at Madawan
Hmm.
where Lauren Bowler's coaching, and she's a
Yes.
former staff member of ours.
Mhm.
Yes.
And we're friends outside of it. So
Yeah.
he went there to support her,
Uh-huh.
and then also to keep on, just check in on the girls, see how they were
Okay.
doing, and was immediately accosted by an administrator, like, "What are you doing here?" And again, there was no formal, "This is what your suspension entails. This is what," nothing. So he was like, "What do you mean?" And then finally, I think that was, I forget the exact date, but finally, like a week later, he gets a letter, not me. He gets a letter indicating that he can't attend games. So it was just a mishmash of mistakes and lack of ownership, lack of accountability.
How are just a personal question? How are your daughters doing? Because I had the pleasure of coaching against them in high school, and always great kids. So how's everybody there?
Well, thanks for asking. Victoria, my oldest daughter, is up in Boston. She's teaching at a Catholic school, teaching history, Catholic high school. And she started a girls field hockey program there.
Nice.
And they're already competing for state, playoffs and championships. And then her basketball team, she's one of the assistant coaches. They just won the state title up in Massachusetts. So it's kind of nice to hear her carrying the torch.
Yeah.
And my youngest daughter, Caitlin, isn't playing anymore, but she's a staff member on a physical therapy group and gets to see athletes in the shore all the time. So she definitely stays connected and is doing a great job.
Awesome.
Appreciate you checking in on.
Yeah. Listen, like I said, I'm not going to sing your praise anywhere. I like you. I think you're a great guy. You deserve another shot. Absolutely. And the game isn't the same without you on the sideline because, as much as I've coached against you, I love the way you coach. You don't get on officials like most coaches. It's all about the kids, the development of the kids, and you take no credit for that. It's all about them, and that's the way what I've always admired about you is that don't worry about me. It's my kids that you should worry about.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Doug. Yeah, Bob, you might want to check with a couple of officials on that.
You're not as bad as I was, so let's say that.
No, and listen, one of the things if I don't return, one of the things I will absolutely miss is not just the kids and the interaction with them, but the coaches. I think there is a brotherhood, sisterhood connection there. I was very proud of Will Wishart getting that co-coach of the year with Dawn, who of course I have an affinity for and having worked with her, but it was so great to see Will from shore and get the acknowledgement he richly deserves. The interactions with Joe and Lisa, and I'll just miss all those things for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's where we have to see him back on the sideline.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we'll see. I got to think through it all.
So, anything else, Doug? I mean, Darren, anything you want to end with?
No, I'm probably a broken record at this point. I love my girls. I'm very proud of them. I wish them the absolute best. That's one thing, whether I coach again or not being able to coach at Homedale with, to see Erica and Alexandra and Allison get through to their senior years and on to college. That's a sore point for me, for sure.
Darren, you were the third coach to appear on my interview twice. So JT, Dawn, and Will.
Wow, I really feel honored now. That's royalty.
Yeah. yes. And one soccer coach did it twice. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. And I do appreciate what you guys do, and keep it up. I'll be checking and tuning in for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure even if you're not on the sidelines this season, this winter, we'll see you at, you can't stay away. I'm sure we'll see you at games that we're at.
Oh,
yeah, I love Shore Conference girls basketball. I'll be around.
Yeah, how many times we ran into them? Quite a few times.
Yeah. And listen, and that's one more thing. I give you a lot of credit for still showing up after all this stuff going on, with all this stuff going on, and again, that, like Nick said, that's just a testament to your character. That you're there for the girls no matter what is going on in your personal life, and I really admire that.
Well, thank you. I'd have it no other way.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Glad to be back on the podcast with Doug, and great first interview back with Darren. And like I said, hopefully we see him back on the sideline. I think we will. And Darren, thank you for taking time out, to tell the story. It took, like I said at the beginning, it took a lot for me to keep my tongue bite on my tongue and not tweet something about the situation, because even before I got more details, I knew it was bull. Just knowing you personally and, getting phone calls, I'm sure Dave won't mind me bringing it up, but Dave was flipping out when he first, he's a big supporter of yours as well. And, me and Dave spent countless time, phone conversations talking about the
Yeah,
whole
Dave's
situation.
a good guy and also a former Navy lieutenant, so we have some blood that we share.
So, it took a while. I'm glad, when we ran into you, you very willingly, when we brought it up, I think you brought it up. Hey, I'll come on,
Yeah.
and, and, glad to get this out. I thought Brian did a good job with the article. Um, a funny story, because I texted him last week. I had a lot going on. We tried to start setting this up 2 weeks ago, but I had some things going on. And then I texted Brian last week. I said, we're going to get Darren on next week. We're going to iron out a day. He's like, my article's coming out early next week. He goes, and then he actually apologized to me today. Because I texted him, I go, great article. And he was sorry, that it got out before your podcast. But, I know he hits more people than we hit. But, but yeah, good luck. And definitely, I have a hunch we'll see you on the sideline soon.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. We'll definitely see each other one way or the other.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Thanks,
All right.
Darren. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Well, take care.